right, welcome everyone. Tonight is the night we're going to be talking about the Alabama Triple Crown. What's going on? All right, so we've got
What's
a
up?
great
Up, everybody.
crew here in the house tonight. We've got As the Crow Flies Hiking, Terry Young Outdoors, Squidly, and Miyagi on the trail. All right, the dream team couldn't ask for more. So I want to say thank you guys for joining us. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about things that happened before in terms of training, items to take with you on the Alabama Triple Crown, things that might happen during the event in terms of what our experiences were on the 3 different trails, and then afterwards, what that recovery might look like. If you didn't know who I am, I'm Metro on the Move, and I'm really excited to be here with these guys tonight. So what I really want to do is just kind of kick things off and let everyone kind of welcome the room. Welcome, everyone.
What's up?
Hey, buddy.
Hey, guys.
So it looks like we've got a full house tonight. About 20 people are already in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and start giving some shout outs to people if that's all right. Looks like we have 12 Stones Adventure, Senior Hiker 77, Backpacking Burls, Mountains and More, Following Walker's World. All right, lots of people. Side Trail Adventures, Tangent Trails, Mountains and More. Lots of people. So we're going to give a shout outs as we go along. Thank you again so much for being here. Trips on the Trail, just join us. So as we start things off, guys, I really kind of want to let Crow take the mic here to start things off in terms of just talking about the Alabama Triple Crown and why you put this together initially. But Crow, I always want to go ahead and pass the mic to you and say, what is your first thoughts on the Alabama Triple Crown and why did you put this together?
I don't know. I really have second thoughts about it right now. No, I'm just no. I went up to Michigan with Mark Goes Hiking, and he did the Michigan Triple Crown, and I just thought, man, we could do this in Alabama. We got 3 really good trails within driving distance. And when we did it last year, somebody said, well, why didn't you include something in South Alabama? And I said, well, you got to do it in 3 days. So you got to have 3 trails within driving distance, and they've got to be 20-mile trails or close to it. So we came up with the 3 trails: the Chiaha Wilderness Chin Pen Sky Loop, we have the Oak Mountain State Park Loop, and we've got the Sipsey Wilderness Loop. And of course, you can do the loop in Sipsey multiple ways. In fact, we did it a different way than we were supposed to last year. But I just thought it would be cool to get together people in Alabama and elsewhere to do some kind of challenge for hikers. And here we are. We did it last year under some kind of crazy weather circumstances, but we all made it in some form or fashion. And for whatever reason, I think, Andy, you kind of said, why don't we try to do this again and open it up? And I said, well, I don't know what that's going to look like, but here we are. We're actually doing it. I'm not sure how it all came together again. I put so much time into it last year. I put about half that amount of time this year. But we've got a great group. We have 2 different groups going back-to-back weekends. Is that too much? Am I talking too much? I don't know.
No, it's perfect. In fact, I do know why. We had talked about it earlier in the year after we had completed it, like, hey, we're going to be doing this again. We went to Pinhoti Fest, and we had a great crowd there that wanted to know more about the event. And we were just like, look, let's go ahead and put together these groups. Let's figure it out. Let's go ahead and do it again for those that really want to go for this challenge. So I think it was Pinhoti Fest was really like the stamp of it, saying we're going to put a date to it and we're going to do it. So we have 2 groups this year. Really excited about that. But last year we had a special guest, Miyagi. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thanks for the invite.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience and when you came down? Like, can you tell us like what the travel was like for that first day? Just a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from Wisconsin, and today is the year anniversary since we hiked to Sipsey, and it was the first time I really traveled. Trips and I do a lot of traveling in our vehicle, so we'll literally travel across the country. But because of timing and everything, I needed to jump a flight, and the guys were awesome. Crow, and I can't remember who else was in the car. Might have been Squidly. Anyway, they all picked me up from the airport, and we just had a great time. And for me, in February, it's cold. Right now, I just got back from a trip on the Canadian border where we were dealing with -24, and to head down to Alabama, and it's like in the 50s and 60s is just like it's otherworldly for me. So I kind of had to get into that mindset that I'm getting back into warmer weather hiking. I wasn't expecting all the rain, so I'm glad I did bring the rain gear that I brought, and I do have some tips and things on that later on as we get into it. But for me, I really wasn't. I was surprised that Alabama has mountains. I didn't think about it. This is something we talked about when we were down there, but it's really kind of the start of the Appalachian Mountains on the southern end. And as we got going and really got into the week, and all the guys were discussing this, I learned more about Flag Mountain and just the history of the trails. And for me, it was a real eye opener. I hadn't expected Alabama to be so amazing in terms of hiking.
Yeah, it is quite a different. If you've never been out to Alabama before, you might think it's all just rolling hills, but there are some pretty good climbs, especially on day one, with the Chin Pin Sky Loop. Did I say that right? I just want to make sure I didn't murder that, right?
Yeah, you got 3 different trails. You got the Chinabee Silent Trail, which I think originally was a trail that created for the deaf. The Deaf Society created that trail years ago so they could take people down on that trail. And then you got the Pinhoti, obviously, that runs kind of north and south or northeast. And then you have the Skyway Loop that connects all that back together. So that loop is a very popular overnight loop in Alabama. So we thought that would be great. And it's about 18. Some people say it's, 18.2. Some people say 19. I just tried to round up and say, yeah, it's about 18. I think it's 18. That's what I think it is. But it feels harder than the others to me. It's the hardest one of the 3 to me.
So let's talk about what everyone did leading into this, like training wise, food that you brought with you in terms of the preparations for your days out there. Let's talk about what you guys did training for the event. So I think for this, what I want to do is ask Squidly and then maybe ask a newcomer, Terry Young, what he did. So Squidly, what are you doing, and what did you do to train? Because I know you're going to be joining us on this year's event as well. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did prior to the event?
Yeah, I tried to get out ahead of what am I trying to say? I tried to get out ahead of it because if you wait until about 2 or 3 weeks before and start trying to do some cardio and climb some hills and put in some miles, you've really waited too late, I think, unless you're already pretty fit, which I am not. You may not know what to look at me. I'm 470 years old. And so I have to work really hard on my fitness and being in good shape to do this. So I've actually been going at it now, I think, for a month, and we still have 2 weeks to go. And I even, this is a completely different story, but I even about a month ago, I was working on rehab for my knees from last year. My knees have been sore for the last calendar year because of something that happened on trail. On day one. So go ahead.
What happened on day one on that particular loop?
Well, we got up to, and I didn't have any trouble going up the mountain because that's basically how you start on the Chin Sky Loop. Is you go up the mountain and then you sort of walk across the ridge there for a while, and then you start coming down what's called the Stairway to Heaven. And when I started coming down the Stairway to Heaven with all the rain, I slipped twice. And each time I slipped, I sprained a knee. And so I had to walk myself out on 2 sprained knees and then 5 miles road walk to get back to the vehicles. It was awful, just awful.
So I'll chime in on that. So I still feel guilty about this because
No,
we were going down the backside of the Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah.
And Leonidas is like, oh, hey, watch out behind you. Or watch out, there's going to be something slippery. I was like, oh, okay, thanks, appreciate that. And Squidly's like right behind me. I didn't think to turn around to say anything. I was like, whatever, Next thing you know, Squidly eats it, and Leonidas turns around and is like, yo, I told you. I was like, yeah, I know. Thank you.
Yeah, and then we got down to Adams Gap, and Squid said that we've heard it for the last year. He said his knees went to be with the Lord.
So I take full responsibility for that, Squidly. My bad. So
No.
this year,
That was just bad luck, and I've gotten a lot of mileage out of that. My knees went home to be with the Lord.
Yeah.
Stairway to Heaven is hard enough when it's dry.
Yeah.
But when you add the moisture in, it's treacherous.
So,
And I
Terry
always
Young,
say it's like sorry, go ahead, Jerry. My bad.
Oh,
no, I was going to say with you just being out there. So your training, I know that you just went out there with Squidly to do the loop. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing to train for this event, and obviously what your experience was on the last loop that you did 2 weeks ago, and it was in the rain as well, right?
Yeah, it was. We didn't actually get the whole loop in. We did half of it because we had some really, really bad weather move in on us. Squid can tell you it was terrible. We were laying in our tent on Saturday night, and we could hear trees falling around us and limbs falling around us. But that was actually the first time I had done that half of the loop, which I've done the other half going up Mount Sheehaw. But yeah, so basically I did that, and of course Squid and Crow and I did the flip flop at the Pine Mountain Trail a few weeks ago. I was going to try to get in some long training this weekend, but the storms came in the other day, and I had some roof damage, so I didn't really get to do anything this weekend. But I'll start my taper, of course, starting next weekend. So.
I'm getting a little bit of an echo on my side. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but if you can make sure you turn on the volume on your phone or anything like that, that might help with making sure that echo goes away. Now, I know there was a question that came through. I think it was earlier in terms of how many people have actually completed the actual Alabama Triple Crown. That's a really good question because, again, it kind of sets the tone in terms of this is not going to be broken up into 2 days, like Terry had said. It's going to be one full run, and obviously injuries can happen, and it might prevent you from completing it. Last year, Crow, can you tell us how many people were in the original group and actually how many completed it?
I think there were 12 that started the hike and completed all three. I don't know, maybe 9. I can't remember, 9 or 8 that completed all 3. There was a couple of people that already had told us I can do 2, but I can't do the third one. Then Squid had his injury, and then a couple of people when coming down off of Adams Gap, they took the road back because it was just so treacherous, and I think some knees really got roughed up coming down because coming down, which we'll do again, coming down. Stairway to Heaven is kind of like the 80s Choose Your Own Adventure book. If you're that old to remember the Choose Your Own Adventure books, like there's not a true path. You can't really follow the blue blazes. So you've got to just go through the rocks. It's a scramble, and the rocks can get really rough. And I know that's where Squid slipped on that rock because it's so wet. But we did have some people that finished it afterwards. I sent out some medals, and we even had one dog complete it with oh my goodness, somebody will have to tell me I'm gone blank. I'm after 50, I can't remember anything anymore, but I sent a medal to a dog that completed it with the master, so somebody will have to say who it is. I just went blank for a second, but it's Hank. The dog's name was Hank, and we have a picture of him with his medal. He did all 3 loops. So there's been maybe 15 total that's completed it afterwards, and there's some people that are going to do it after our hike this time. So yeah, we got a number of people, and it keeps adding up.
So a quick recap. So one, the weather is unpredictable. Regardless of the weather, it's rain, sleet, snow, it doesn't matter. We're doing it all the way through, so it's not going to be broken up. 2, on the loop, the initial day 1, the only place to get out is Adams Gap. Otherwise, you're still going to have that huge road walk, and then it's going to be the remainder. So that's the big one, right? So we kind of talked about that loop what to expect on that side. Let's go ahead and pivot to Miyagi and ask him what he thought about this day 2, because I know you had a little bit of a different experience. You actually added on to day 2 when we went to Oak Mountain. Can you talk a little bit about what you and Leonidas did?
Yeah, so we ended up, I think we got dropped off earlier. You remember how many miles it was that we did extra? Can't even remember. I think
it's two and a half.
miles.
Yeah.
So Leonidas apparently was cut from the same piece of fabric. He likes to push himself, and him and I were talking each other up, and neither of us wanted to back down. So we said, well, let's do it, even though it's kind of a rainy, drippy day, and it was a little chilly that morning, I recall.
Yeah,
and, man, we hit it. And that guy's got some legs, man. Leonidas, yeah, I'm constantly impressed with that man. He's just a beast, and it was quite a pleasure keeping up with him and getting to get him know him better.
Yeah. So we got to meet back up with Leonidas and Miyagi after they had completed the first loop. They actually did it and then met back up with us. And then as we started the second day, they were like, okay, glad you guys are here. We're ready for round 2. No, I'm just kidding. So we got up to King's Chair. It was a wash. It was kind of another one of those blown out views, not blowout views, where you couldn't see anything whatsoever. And it was still really very misty and so forth, very cold. But I remember day 2 being like almost like out, quick turn, and then back, but kind of parallel. It's not the same trail. Can you talk a little bit about that experience? Because I know it's kind of like one way. I believe it's going to be 8 or 9 miles on one side, and then can you talk a little bit about how that loop is, what was like, how it's put together?
Me?
Yeah.
So the Oak Mountain Loop, what we're doing this year is we are adding that Lake Connector Trail to make it 20 miles, because initially it was about 18 or so if you start at the North Trailhead. But I always wanted to add that Lake Connector Trail. I did it a few months ago, and it is a bike trail. So I had a couple of angry bicyclists that on my way back in the evening, I started before light. And on the way back, some bikers kept saying, to your left, to your right, they're getting out of the way. So that last mile and a half we'll do is rough. But essentially you go up the Blue Trail, you get to the top, you take the Blue Trail across the back ridge. We take the little side trail to King's Chair. We go down to Peavine Falls. And I remember Jason Outdoors and Miyagi and Side Trail Adventure, who's on the chat. I remember we got to that I had never seen Peavine Falls that flowing. It was flowing like crazy. It was the biggest waterfall I'd ever seen at Peavine. And then we got the treat of coffee and donuts from Jay Ben's wife. She brought us coffee and donuts. Or no, just donuts. We wanted the coffee, but the coffee didn't come.
Krispy Kreme donuts. Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah. And then you just come back down. You go down and you think, oh, well, the rest of it would just be downhill. But there's a lot of PUDs on the yellow trail as you come back across to get back to the North Trailhead.
Yeah, Side Trail Adventures we're just talking about. Let's not talk about those PUDs. I mean, it felt like it was never ending. Like on the way back, it was just like a roller coaster, or a roller coaster of PUDs per se, is what that day 2 felt like at Oak Mountain. But we did get the royal treatment with the donuts. The Krispy Kreme donuts was the royal treatment. But before that, to make it even cooler, we did get to stop at the Pinhoti Outdoor Center. Kim and Nathan right over there, they did such a great job putting that event together. And we were so fortunate, to have that speaker, Nibblewell Nomad, talk about his experiences on the AT, how they're trying to keep the Pinhoti and the AT separate. That was just so compelling. But, the Pinhoti Outdoor Center, for those that don't know about it, obviously is a hostel, but they do a shuttle service as well to help individuals that are hiking the Pinhoti Trail, giving them access to, various different trail points. I think I get a little more feedback there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, somebody's talking, and I don't know who it is talking in the background.
Not exactly sure who it is, but anyway, moving forward, I just want to say thank you again to Kim and Nathan Wright. Definitely appreciate all the hospitality and then putting up with us day 2. This year, Crow, correct me if I'm wrong, though, there is a additional hostel fee. Is that correct in terms of to stay there overnight? That is $30, and cash is probably king, right?
Yeah, they, we really want, we were so appreciative of them last year. They fed us, but they're trying to run a business. So we told them, look, we're going to pay this year. And so I think there's $30 for each person that stays. So you can put your tent out back. You can stay in the hostel. But it's last year, if we wouldn't have had that, I don't know what we'd have done, because it was an absolute storm,
gusher,
Alabama storm gusher last year. I mean, I don't know what would have happened if we not stayed there Friday night. It was crazy. What to be at
Pinhoti Outdoor Center, that was one of the highlights of the trip for me. Just getting a chance to the camaraderie of the fellas, and it was just such a great experience to get to meet Nimblewell. In fact, had a print that was made.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So and that was from the outdoor center there. So I have that hanging up actually in my office at work, and it was just such a pleasure to pick that man's brain and to hear some of the stories that he had to tell, and the camaraderie was great, and it just the fellowship. I think that evening is something that stuck with me, and yeah, it was special for sure.
Because you had done like a number of. First of all, you're on your channel. You have obviously done a documentary of sorts on this individual as well. So you actually got to meet him in the flesh, hear his story. So that must have been like just the two worlds connecting. That just had to be an awesome moment for you.
Yeah. The first time I've heard of him, when he hiked the North Country Trail, I picked up a book and read about this guy, and I was just so fascinated. And he's just been one of those personalities that I was hoping I'd have the chance to meet. And when I can't remember, it was Crow who said that trying to put together for Nathan to pick up Nimblewell and have him come down to the center for us and have a chance for us to eat some dinner and talk amongst hikers. It was just so special. That was awesome.
Looks like we got Craig Maines in the house. Oh, wow.
All right, Craig, what's up, Hawk?
Awesome. Very cool. I actually saw Hawk at the AT kickoff yesterday. In fact, Hawk, I don't know if you remember sitting in those chairs, but that was my chairs there. That was quite an experience there. The AT kickoff was such a cool event. Thank you, Hawk, for joining us. Day 3, though. So after we got done with Oak Mountain, we had to pretty much haul out of there because there was a time constraint, right? It was a lot of logistics getting from Oak Mountain to the Sipsey. Can you talk a little bit about, Crow? Can you talk a little bit about the logistics there and what to expect, after we get done doing the 20-miler at Oak Mountain?
Yeah, well, this was where I'm not a very good party planner, I guess, because Alabama has spotty cell service in parts, and especially going up to the Sipsey. Squid and I know we go to the Sipsey all the time, and there's not good cell service up there. So we decided to make everybody go to, well, not make everybody, we wanted everybody to go to some barbecue because Alabama's known for barbecue. So we went to Dreamland, and I wanted Miyagi to taste the sweet barbecue sauce in Alabama. So we tried that. They have those ribs that are so good, and that was fun. But what it created was we got on the road later, and we had an hour and a half drive to get to the Sipsey. Yeah. And we all kind of were supposedly in a caravan, but our caravan got in different spots and different lights at times, and we had to hook back up. Cell service was bad. We finally all got there. But the biggest issue of the trip was that night as we hiked in about a half mile, found a campsite. I went down to the confluence. Squidly showed me that word. I didn't know that word before I met Squidly. The confluence of Sipsey Fork and Borden Creek, and it was above our head. I mean, we would have to swim it if we would cross it, and that was part of the loop. So J-Ben was able to, and I couldn't get Squidly because I was going to ask Squidly, should we take the other side of Trail 200? I hope I'm not talking too much, but I'm so passionate about this stuff. So we took the other side of 200 so we could skip the loop. But what it did was, and I remember Austin, Side Trail Adventure, said to me, like, how much is this going to add? Because I wasn't quite sure, but I think we ended up doing a 22-mile day on the third day.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. It was craziness. So let me chime in here and tell you what day 3 felt like from my perspective. And at Miyagi, I would also like you to kind of chime in on that as well. But after we hiked in, yes, it was already cold as can be, and it had been raining, right? So in the morning, all of the wet, everything was frozen over. So the entire Sipsey Wilderness was just like this winter wonderland of icicles, just completely cascading the entire loop, waterfalls everywhere, but it was freezing cold. So we woke up, all of our tents were frozen over, all of our gear were frozen over, had to break down, get to, to the trailhead to warm up and, get food for the day. Miyagi, I think I remember talking about, you had the best food. You always have the best food, but you also had some kind of it was like chicken and dumplings or something like that before we got on the trail. What was it like for you on day 3, besides it being extremely cold and all the wonderful winter wonderland? Starting off
being at home. I recall waking up. I'm like, okay, this is what February is supposed to be like. No, it was, but I was still rocking the shorty shorts, so
He was
still in the shorts. Still in the shorts. It was craziness. So then we get the Fat Man Squeeze, right? And that's like only a few miles into it. I remember that was really cool, that moment of going through that crevice, getting through. And then we ran into a person. We hadn't seen anyone the entire time we were out there, and some lady with her dog. And Backpacker Bob, showed up out of nowhere, Do you think Backpacker Bob is going to show up again on day 3? That's a question I think everyone wants to know.
I've heard that he is still out in Utah somewhere. He had some issues with trying to get his way back home. Squid, I've heard, put him on a wild goose trail to try to find the Middle Earth Trail. And so I think he's looking for Squid when he gets back. So, but he ran out of money, so I don't know if we'll ever see him again.
Did he ever have any money?
Well,
he's got a lot of other people's money.
Well, I hope to see Backpacker Bob, and I think that he gets a bad rap. There are plenty of worse people out there on YouTube that I have seen in real life. So I'm thinking I would hang out with Backpacker Bob amongst others any day, right? But so we get into the hike. We saw some really cool landmarks in this loop too. We're going to see the biggest tree in the Sipsey Wilderness, but it's a landmark tree. What is the name of that tree that's at the I guess the turning point for the final loop? What is the name of that, Crow?
Well, it has a real special name. It's called the Big Tree. It's
the big tree.
Yeah, it's a yellow poplar. But actually, to be honest, the Big Tree is not on the official Alabama Triple Crown loop. It was just on this loop because we had to reroute because of the 8-foot creek crossing that we could not do. So it's not officially on the loop, though. People can do a side trail if they want to. It's the last day, so if they want to go off, I'm sure Squid will take them on the off of the trail to see it.
Well, the disclaimer here that I'm really curious about is are we crossing the creek then again? Is that for sure? I mean, maybe I've missed a memo here. Squid?
Well, all right, so here's the deal. And of course, I was hurt. My knees weren't having any of this on the last trip, but there is a second way. There's a plan B, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so we can go with the original plan if the crossing is passable. If it's not, there's an easy plan B where when we go back to the parking lot to take our big packs and put those back in the vehicles, pick up our day packs. Instead of starting right there, we just pick up and drive. It's like 10 or 15 minutes down the road to another trailhead that's just on the other side of the Fat Man Squeeze. So, and we cross a bridge there, and so we would be able to do that crossing with a bridge instead of having to.
Okay. So there's options
instead of having to cross the water.
Yeah.
And get wet.
Okay, that's good to hear. That's good to hear because I'm sure there's a few people. So, all right. So for me on the day 3, I remember that final loop, the last 5 miles, getting back to that bridge, that almost broke me. Like that, I think that almost got me to a point of where I think I was hiking with Miyagi. And Miyagi was just like, hopping along. In fact, I think he hopped all the way to the front of the line at this point. But Miyagi, do you remember that final stretch? I mean, are we doing that loop, Crow? And then Miyagi, do you remember that final strip?
I remember seeing a different side of you, Metro. This
I
was the
was
first time I had a
crying,
chance
man. I was crying.
hike with you, and you're just like full of energy and full of stories, and just a pleasure to hike with. And then you really kind of start your emotions really kind of started, getting real heavy. And I think a few times you laid down on the trail, and maybe,
Yeah.
I don't know. You had a few breakdowns, but you toughed it through. You really did. I was proud of you.
Well, let's get on that. That's a good point. So at the very beginning, Keith was talking about like if you haven't really been training, right? And I've been training, but I haven't been busting out 15, 20 milers. I just been doing like 5 to 7 milers. You know what I'm saying? But I'm consistent at hiking. I go out every weekend, but I haven't been doing the endurance. So I did the same thing last year and I made it. So again, where I'm going with this is a silver lining, right? Put one foot in front of the other. Slow and steady wins the race. Don't overexert yourself. So even if you're not doing huge miles, you can still do this. However, now that we've gotten to the end of day 3, what I want to do is kind of talk about what happened afterwards after doing 60 miles, 3 days back to back. What was the recovery like for you guys? I know that 2 of the people in the room here did not do it, so I'm just going to start with Miyagi. I know you're in shape. I would like to hear your opinion in terms of what that was like for you.
So leading into
in terms
this
of
trip,
recovery.
I did do quite a few miles. My highest mileage is about 53 miles. So I've done quite a few 20s, and I know what it feels like. My piece of advice would be, if you plan on attempting something like this, is get a few 20s underneath your belt. And if you can, even do a few 25s or 30s. And that really puts that 20 in perspective. I was hiking with Jason Outdoors, and we were kind of doing some hikes leading up to this. And I'm like, you really gotta hit that 20 milestone. You got to hit the 30 milestone. And really, once you start doing the bigger miles, 15s and 20s don't become that big of a deal anymore, at least in your head. So you really need to do a number of hikes like this before you attempt to take this on, especially 20 after 20 after 20. And the last day was 22 miles. So getting those miles in, and really getting your pack weight down as much as you can. This is one of those trips where you want to be as light as you can. Super ultra light if you can, for sure.
So the recovery for you, nothing. You were back to normal almost immediately.
Yeah, sore feet. After that, in Wisconsin, we don't have the mountains like you do in Alabama. And I know Alabama isn't the big mountains, but coming from Wisconsin, they're big mountains for me. So I'm used to putting on miles, but I'm not used to putting on miles in mountainous areas. We have the Sawtooth Mountains up in Minnesota, which I'm very familiar with. A lot of PUDs, but it's much more dramatic in Alabama. So that part of it I wasn't used to. You just got to get out there and you got to beat your feet.
So I had a question here. It said, is one time of doing 21 miles 2 weeks before okay? What would you say?
I would say you're going to feel it on day 3 for sure. If you've only done that once, day 3 hits different, especially if you're dealing with some weather, like the rain and things, because it's really going to tap your body. Water, rain hitting you is going to sap your temperature 20 times faster than the air is. And you really don't notice that until you're done at the end of the day. And for a lot of us that were hiking in the rain all day, like up on Oak Mountain, we were really sapped at the end of the day. You really felt it. So that next day makes it even harder to recover from. So if you can get a number of 20s in beforehand, this is going to sound funny, but at work, I work a desk, and I got rid of my chair and I stand all day. And that's something that's helped me out tremendously, is just standing, getting as much time on your feet as you can. That's one tip that I would have for those that are looking to do this, is just spend as much time on your feet as you can.
So Crow, you got this going back to back, right? So you know what to expect last year. What was the recovery like from last year for you, and what do you think the impact is going to be to you having to do it the following week as well? Because you're doing it back to back.
Yeah, I don't know. I've second guessed myself, but I had some people that wanted to go and were excited about it. And they had the passion for it. So I wanted to do it. So I'm going to try to do it 2 weekends in a row. I've told everybody on the Facebook group, it's like, there's no bad feelings if you back out because you have not trained. If you have not trained, don't come out there and think that you can go 0 to 20 in 3 days. There's a lot of people who would say, 20-mile a day is not a big deal, that through hike, because if you're a through hiker, which I'm not, I'm just a weekend warrior, but those people who through hike, they build up those miles. They may start a week with 15, 16, and then build up to 20s. But for the challenge like this, the real big thing, and I remember Jason Outdoors said to me that last day, he said that his knees were just screaming at him, but he was like, he was not going to quit. And there'll be, I think, a lot of people that'll do that, but I don't want anybody to get hurt out there. So I've told everybody, like, train and build up to that 20. Like Miyagi said, because going from 0 to 20 and doing it 3 days in a row, it's just, it's not good. Your body, it's just a shock to your system. And I remember that third day, I mean, the next week I had that hiker hobble for several days. And then, just soreness. So I don't know if we were going into tips and stuff, but I'm telling everybody, like, you got to bring electrolytes out there. If anything, even if not food, make sure you've got electrolytes to get through the day and vitamin I to get through the night.
Yeah. So that's a good point. So I kind of want to give my perspective real quick, because again, you kind of get the different levels of hikers. And yeah, I'm Metro. I'm a party pacer. I'm a 10 to 15 miler. I do 7 miles pretty much every single weekend. I'm not like saying I'm a huge miler guy at all. And I'm going to tell you right now, day one, before we got to Adams Gap, especially with the rain, and Squidly will probably back me up, I was hurting already by then, and that was just 7 miles, right? And we had 13 to go past that point. But I was driven and I made it. So, again, I'm just trying to give the other side of it, that you can do it. Even if you are a seasoned hiker, you're going to feel it by mile 7 on day one. That's just warning, point blank. And then moving forward, just like Miyagi said, if you're not used to doing 20-mile days, even if you are an avid hiker, you go out all the time, here's what to expect on day 2. You're going to start feeling it a little bit more, especially if that's not in your training schedule, just like I did. But day 2, I felt, was kind of like the silver lining. It wasn't that hard. It was kind of flowing. So even if you're hurting, you're going to make it through. Now, the Sipsey, I would say out of all the 3 days, it's the flattest or the least amount of incline that you can have in terms of descent and incline and so forth and elevation. But the duration, to Miyagi's point, he saw a different side of me, because I don't know about you guys, but for me, I start to fall like around 13 to 15. I start really feeling it, right? That's when I start feeling like, oh, yeah, that was a good day. Past 15, every mile you feel. When you get to 20, then your body's like saying, oh my gosh, it's the hiker hobbles in action. So I was actually really hobbling out. And on day 3, I will say, because of how waterlogged I was, my feet were blistered all in between every single toe, around the sides. I mean, it was completely torn up. So the recovery for me was about 3 weeks. It took me a week just to get through the normal aches and pains, but I still have an issue on my right foot. I already have a condition, but I tore something or did something to one of the tendons from just getting stuck in the mud and pulling it out. And over the past year, I've been nursing it. I still got an injury from it. So in terms of takeaways, Keith was talking about his knee. I have some injuries from it. So, but I'm doing it again. I might be crazy man here, but at everybody's point, everybody does things differently. I'm looking at it as, I know I can do it, but I'm also going to have to deal with the pain. So if you're not trained up and you're not prepared for that, it's not saying you won't make it. It's just that you will have some repercussions from that afterwards. And I'm firsthand. I'm not trying to hide. I'm not a super hiker by any means. I am just I'm a Metro. I'm the city boy hiker. That's what I like to do, is go out on the weekends and do 7, 15 type miles. I'm feeling it. So just a word of caution. You got the pros and you got the Metros. So you got all the in-betweens there.
Well, hey, Crow, on this Triple Crown, at least I didn't have to massage your calves this time.
Yeah, in Michigan, I think we got that on video somewhere. I had just a meltdown of I had a cramp and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I just had to lay down and he was stretching me out. I was like, oh gosh, this is kind of awkward.
Well, you and I are hiking together. We were crossing this log and I was ahead of you. And all of a sudden you just cried out in pain. And I turned around and you were like doing a header over this tree. And I thought you had banged up your knee or I don't know what you did, but you were holding your leg and you're saying cramps. Well, that stretched you out. Yeah. But
Yeah,
you didn't have any of that this time.
No, it's funny because I always see those guys playing football stuff or soccer and they're cramping. I'm like, come on, get up. Well, I was on the ground. I was like, I'm not getting up. It's not, I mean, my leg was not moving. And until you stretched it out, I was down. But no, I don't know why. But it's funny because, right after this last year, I think the next week I went into the hospital, was in the hospital for like 5 days with an unrelated illness with my esophagus. But I was fine that whole weekend. And then all of a sudden it hit me once I got back that few days later, I was in the hospital, but it had nothing to do with the Triple Crown. That's for sure.
It's interesting you bring that up. We're talking about, electrolytes and things. And one thing that's worked really well for me is a product called Salt Stick. And they're just little caplets of electrolytes. And, I'll pop usually one of those every hour when we're doing, major miles like this. And it helps keep the electrolytes up. And you really got to drink more on these types of events. So, filtering water and making sure that you have enough on you at all times is key.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, those electrolyte tabs, definitely would say is a must. Food for the trail, though. What will you guys take in terms of snacks? Those are great. That's a great comment. What items did you take in terms of quick bites, quick, energy, electrolytes? What is your preference to take on trail?
For me, it's really a balance of salt and sweet. I got to have a balance of the two. So, I'll bring granola, things like that, but then I'll bring some trail mix and I'll bring some sweets. Usually things like that. Leonidas actually gave us, I can't remember what they were called, but that powder that we put in our
Tailwind.
Tailwind.
Yeah.
Tailwind. Shout out to Tailwind because, man, that stuff was really good. That was a great trail snack that you can add to your water.
Yeah, I like the green tea one. I'm not trying to plug their brand too much, but it is good stuff. It has caffeine and sugar in it. And if you are looking for a little TNT is what they call it, right? A little Tailwind and what was it? What's the other tea? But anyway, it puts a little pep in your step. If you're looking to get your maximum bang for your buck, Tailwind is definitely there, especially the ones with caffeine. Food items though, like quick bites outside. What are you guys thinking about bringing? Squidly. What do you bring in terms of your conditions and things of that nature?
Yeah, I've got some different issues because I'm diabetic.
Yeah.
So I have to kind of balance. Yeah, I have to kind of balance having all of that sugary stuff. And so actually today I experimented with kind of how I was doing it. So in addition to doing some training with some miles, I was also training on trying to eat what I'm planning on eating. And at the times that I was planning on eating it, this is maybe way too much. And doing it on the move where I wasn't stopping to get food out. So I had my fanny pack and was pulling food out and kind of eating it as I go. But basically it was this. It was protein bars, which of course have carbohydrates, which I'm just going to turn into sugar. But try to eat those slowly. And then when I get legit for real hungry, it's either eating cheese or eating peanut butter just straight out of the jar.
Hey, Terry, what about you? I know you've been quiet over on that side. What would you bring? What are you planning to bring on your side for the upcoming ATC? Oh, hold on, we got you on mute here.
Got me. Okay, yeah. The Stinger waffles. I like bringing those. The little blocks. I forgot who makes the blocks, but they break off in little pieces. I like those. I bring some small little candy bars if I need a sugar rush, some little Snicker bars or something like that. Now, of course, we'll have protein bars and lots of electrolytes.
So that's a good point in terms of things to bring: snacks, candy bars, electrolytes, things of that nature. So in our packs, I'm only bringing a very small backpack with me. I may even end up bringing just either the Z-Packs Fupa or even smaller, just a through pack, like pack with me, just filled with my items I need to drink water and obviously with my snacks. The weight, you obviously want to keep it down as much as possible. What size backpacks are you taking with you for these day hikes? I'm not talking about your camp packs. I'm talking about the size leader pack that you're going to be taking with you. And what do you think the weight is going to be that you're going to be taking with you on trail?
For me, I'm going with the Waymark gave me one of those Dark Sky 18. So I did have the Through last year, the Waymark Through. No, not Through, Mile. But I've got the Dark Sky 18. So it's only 18 liters, but it has, a way to have water on both sides. So there's really no need to have more than a 20-liter pack at the most. I mean, like you said, Andy, you could do it with just a fanny pack or something, because we don't need anything unless there's an issue. Now, I've told everybody on the Facebook group, I'm just a one-man show, and we don't have bailout points. Like you said, we got Adams Gap, Oak Mountain's easier because we can bail out there. But once we get in the Sipsey, there's no real bailout. So, because we're going so light, you want to have first aid, obviously, at least something. You got to have electrolytes and some snacks. And then, rain gear, possibly. We'll just see how that turns out. But yeah, you don't need much.
So top tips that you guys think you guys would give. We talked about a number of different items here. Keep the weight low, train obviously before the event. Any tips beyond that you would like to suggest at this point?
I'm a big proponent of the hiking umbrella, and we talked about that earlier, but if you got any rain, keep it off your body as much as possible. I've always been a huge proponent of the hiking umbrella. There's a number of really nice ones out there, and that's really it's gonna save your butt at the end of the day.
So hiking umbrella from Miyagi. Squidly?
I don't know. Today I made a huge mistake because I went out and, like I said, I was doing some training with some miles, but I did some things that I would not normally do because the loop I was doing was only 13 miles. And I thought, well, I need to really push myself and sort of make up for the fact that it's only 13 miles. And I carried a much heavier pack than I would normally do in order to push myself. And it was a huge mistake. I did that and also did the first 7 miles of it at 4 miles an hour. I was booking.
Trucking.
And I between miles 7 and 8, I hit a wall. So I guess my biggest advice is don't do what I do. It's just a series of misadventures and mistakes.
That's actually a good point, Squidly. And I've done a number of trips where we've done some really large miles, and to get the big miles in, you don't have to have a really fast paced. It's all about constant movement. And what you want to do is all the things that you do, from filtering water to eating, you want to try to do it as much as possible on the trail. So if you can scoop up a bag of dirty water and filter it as you're walking, and even just maintaining a 2 mile an hour pace is sufficient to get 20 miles in, and starting early as well. Start right as the sun's coming up, as soon as you feel comfortable. And it's that steady, constant movement. That's what's going to get you your 20 miles.
So
somebody mentioned, oh, sorry, Andy. I'm sorry. Somebody mentioned on the messages that to bring a cork ball or even one of those rollers and keep in your truck. I know one of my kids has got one of those rollers. So I'm going to probably keep that in my truck. And Squid mentioned to me last night about keeping a cooler in his truck. The one good thing about this whole thing is you've got access to your vehicle. So I'm going to keep a cooler with some, Powerades or something in my truck for when I get done. But yeah, keeping a roller, because at night you're going to want to roll out those knots in your legs and stuff.
Yeah, another thing to consider is we're going to be on the move between trails, so we won't have a lot of downtime we're going to be in cars on the move, so we won't have a lot of time just to lay straight out and stretch. I'm a big proponent on stretching after a long hike.
Okay, so we got the cork balls, stretching, you got your 18-liter packs, you've got, minimizing how much weight you're taking with you on trail. That we have the umbrella, and don't do what Squidly says to do. and for me, I'd say that I think, again, it is keeping the weight low, but if I had to give any advice, would be bring more socks than you think. Again, since
Good
you
point.
will be going
Yeah.
day to day, you do not need to be like, oh, I need one pair of socks, let them dry out. I would bring multiple pairs of socks. I would also bring multiple pairs of shoes. Again, it's not like you're going on a through hike where you're really worried about the weight in terms of long distance and you're having to carry it on your pack. You can swap your shoes out per day.
Right.
So last year, again, with that big freeze, my shoes, my Olympus, they actually froze over that night. So in the morning, I had to wear boots that I had used, but I left in my car because they were dry and they weren't frozen over because I couldn't put the shoes on. And that's what led to me having all of those issues on day 3. Also, because it was Gore-Tex and all the water got soaked inside of it. So I had waterlogged shoes in addition to it. So bring more socks than you think. Bring multiple pairs of shoes is another thing that I would recommend. And I would also recommend making sure that you do understand that the cell reception is spotty, to make sure that you do stay as connected as possible. I remember us having some issues just trying to get there, just following each other. So if you can map it out as best as possible to that trailhead beforehand, so regardless of what happens, you don't get scared. Because it was like we were going down some really crazy country roads, and I was like, where in the world are we going? Because day 3 was just like completely out there, no cell phone reception. And I remember us having to meet up in a couple different spots. That's another thing. Map it all out beforehand. Those are my big tips that I would have for anyone that's about to do this as well.
Yeah, I can't. Don't underestimate just how remote that day 3 is. It is out there on its own, holding the world together.
Yeah, that reminds me. I'll get Squid to send out. It's on Google Maps, the Sipsey picnic area trailhead, and so we need to make sure, Squid, we put that on the Facebook link again so that everybody can go back to that, because that's where things can break down, because we'll lose reception anywhere past Jasper. We're going to lose reception. So let's make sure that everybody's got that link to the Sipsey picnic area so that everybody can at least get there.
I'm a big fan of the Garmin InReach. I think they're just an essential part of hiking, especially if you do a lot of solo hiking. It does, they're expensive, and it does come with a plan you have to buy. But if you ever get off somewhere like the Sipsey and have an emergency, it might save your life.
Cool. So we've come up to almost an hour. I just want to go ahead and open it up for questions. If you guys have a question that are in chat, make sure it's all caps so we can see it, and also address who you would like to answer that question if you want us to answer any questions. Hopefully this has been helpful for anyone that wants to do the Alabama Triple Crown, that's going to be doing it this year or in the near future if you're doing it independently. And again, this is just some feedback for consideration. If you want to hike your own hike, do what you want to do in terms of, if you think you can do it, great. No one should tell you any differently. This is just feedback to consider before you put yourself out there. And that's really part of Leave No Traces, understanding what you're going to be encountering when you're out there. Even if you're the most experienced hiker, it is helpful to hear it come from different perspectives and different levels of hikers. I've learned personally, when I say I like to go hiking, to say it to the same level hikers, because I've hiked with Leonidas to where he's been my shuttle driver. I'm hiking 2 miles an hour and he's hiking 83 miles an hour, and he is actually done with the trail, comes back, picks up the car, and then shuttles us back to the original trailhead. There's a lot of people out there that can do things that are just, I don't know how they do it. They're just magical creatures, to say the least. So it's just consideration, things to put out there. Any questions from the chat group? Love to hear your questions. If you have them, now is the time to do it. Big shout out to everyone that has joined us in today's episode. I don't know if anyone wants to give a shout out to anyone that they've seen. I'll go ahead and open it now for the rest of anybody in the room.
Yeah, Orville Weatherman, we met him at the Pinhoti Outdoor Center last year, and then he came back and did it, and he did it with a full pack after we did it. He came back. I can't remember, Orville, was it like a month later or something? but if you remember, he was at the Pinhoti Fest and played guitar. But yeah, he did it. I think he was the first one that did it after we completed it last year. And so that was really cool that he came back and, asked me about it and did it.
So Orville is another trail monster, right? So he's one of those people that puts it out there like, oh, no big deal, but he can hike some miles. I'm actually really interested to see what it's like hiking with Weatherman and seeing what his style is like, because he hiked the Pinhoti. It was no big deal for him, and he's on to the next. He's just an avid hiker, but he downplays it how many miles he likes to do, right?
Yeah. He's kind of a low key guy, just a really nice person to be around. But he's not going to boast about it. But yeah, he's a beast of a hiker.
Anyone want to give a shout out there?
We got a question. We got a question there, Andy. Somebody said, is there any cutoff times or finish times? Nope. If you can make it in 24 hours, you got it.
I'm sorry. Here we go. Is there any cutoff times? Yep. And here we go. Misty had a question as well. Do you carry a full meal for lunch?
No. Nope. No, we snacked as we went.
I'm a big fan
of little snacks.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of paydays because paydays have peanuts and they don't have chocolate in them, or at least the normal ones, so they don't melt. If it does get, you don't know if it's going to be 80 degrees in Alabama or 40. So I love paydays because they have that peanut that gives you the slow protein. So something like that. I just snack during the day. I may not even have a lunch. I may just have snacks.
So Poles of Destiny hiking. Should I invest in a day pack, or will my 45-liter pack be okay? It's around 2 pounds, the bag itself. What do you guys think?
I mean, I'm taking a 38-liter pack, a Z-Pack's Nero, but it rolls down. You can make it smaller. So, I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean,
it's
doable. That right out.
It's doable.
Yeah, it's doable.
You just don't want to load it down, because at the end of the day, you're going to be feeling it every single pound on your back. You're going to feel it in your feet.
Yeah. The problem with taking a bigger pack, the bigger pack you take, the more you pressure yourself to fill that joker up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't have to go buy something. You could just take your child's day pack or school pack. Really, I mean, all you need is a lunch, water, electrolytes, for the day. Because remember, we have access to our cars at night. You don't need to carry anything that you need at night. Just stuff for the day.
Yeah, he's saying mainly for emergency shelter, medical kit, powder, and snacks.
Yeah.
Okay, so be still in the trail.
It is good to have some of those emergency things, though. I'm gonna say yes on that. Be prepared for emergencies as well.
I always keep one of those Mylar. What do you call those little sleeping
emergency blanket?
Little big emergency. I always keep one of those in my pack because they don't weigh anything and they're super easy. You use them, pull them out, use them once, and if it comes to that, we'll have a couple of those.
I'm going to take my down jacket also because it doesn't weigh anything. I'm going to roll it up.
I'm going to stop you on that one. I don't think that that's a smart idea. I will say that if I was going to do this, I would take a synthetic jacket, like a nano puff, only because of the unpredictable rain factor. And if you have down out there, and it's also getting warm. So I would, if you're going to take a jacket, I would go with a synthetic for sure.
Yeah. I've got an Arc'teryx Atom LT. I think will work nicely on that.
So PTL, do you stick together smaller groups or split up individually? I would say that we split up. There is a little bit of people breaking up the packs per se, but there were some areas where you would catch up. So here's the unfortunate part about that is when you finally catch up to where the group has stopped, they've already done with the break. So you're gonna. So it's kind of like if there's a turn, a left or a right, they may say that. I mean, look, just as also, I will be at the end, so I'll be with the caboose. So I'll be looking for directions in the final group in the very back. So don't feel bad if it does break up too badly, though. I just want to put that out there. Let's see here. Any other questions? I don't see any other. Looks like there was one for Mr. Miyagi. So Micah wants to know a question from Miyagi.
Shug, how did I like the trip with Shug? So I just got back from the Boundary Waters. We did a 7-day trip to the Boundary Waters with a bunch of YouTubers, Midwest Backpacker, Rob Pelton, Andy Parrish, Milos, and the one and only Shug. So I've camped with Shug 2 other times. They were at Hammock Hangs. This was the first big trip that I've taken with him, and he is everything that you see in his videos. He is just a load of fun. The guy can tell stories. You can talk and talk and talk all night, but he's very humble. Makes really good treats. If you ever get a chance to hike with him, he's always giving you little chocolates and little things that he's made at home. He brought racks of ribs. And the guy, he talks about not working in his videos, how he's lazy and he likes to lollygag and all that. That guy can work. He chopped a lot of wood. In fact, one of our campsites, I have an ice spud. He chopped through 18 inches of ice so that we could get our water. He was just a workhorse. So don't let him kid you. That man can hold his own and he can hike. We did day hikes and he had no problem keeping up with the group. So my hat's off to Shug. If you ever get a chance to, he's just wonderful company to have at camp. And I can't say enough about the guy, and I look forward to hiking with him more.
I actually saw the Milos video where he did a walkthrough of Shug's camp, where he was actually showcasing all the different, I guess he had built into the snow different shelves and different ways to organize everything. And Milos was very impressed, right?
Yes, he was. Yeah. Milos is a fanboy. So when I told him we were going to be camping with Shug, he was just completely beside himself. So that made his year probably. Milos
he just
is
came
another
out of
one.
retirement, right?
Yeah, you get a chance to hike with Milos. She's another one. Him and Shug together, my gosh, just crazy. Juggling stuff and just crazy.
So with Milos, she only comes out once a year now, twice a year, because it's almost like it's just random moments. He picks it. Is it a special occasion? Can we get him together with Backpacker Bob one day, maybe?
I would love to get him with Backpacker Bob. I think the two would hit it off. He travels a lot, so he's kind of hard to pin down. So this just the stars aligned, and we were able to get him there this year. Last year he wasn't able to join us, but yeah, it was great this year.
Hey Andy, somebody's asking if they can join the Pinhoti Mafia.
The Mafiettes. I love that. Yeah, so the Pinhoti Mafia is just a bunch of people that have gotten together recently. It was something that we put a name to just to signify, I guess, us individuals going out and experiencing the Pinhoti Trail and the the friendships that we've made. Of course, it really everything we do on YouTube is really all about sharing it with everyone. It's not like it's exclusive by any means. I mean, it's just. For us, it's just sharing these opportunities and these moments and these videos with everyone. So it's open. Yeah, of course, it's open to everyone.
Hey, something I was going to mention before we go, Andy. Before I was going to go, Andy, it hit me. You were talking about why we decided to do this again, and the thing that changed it was when we were doing the Pinhoti Fest, and we were all starstruck because Dixie started walking down the vendors. And I was like, oh my gosh, Dixie's going to speak to us. And so she was super nice. And she was asking us, what the Alabama Triple Crown was. And then as nice a person as she was, she actually got up during her speech at the Pinhoti Fest and does this like 3 or 4 minutes talking about the Alabama Triple Crown. And I think that's what made us do it again this year because people started asking about it,
In fact, to continue on with that, I remember sitting next to you at the booth watching the speech, and you started the Facebook group and you said, "It's real, it's happening, it's going down." So you made the group right there,
yeah.
And then immediately I said, "Follow," or join, and you said, "Requires approval." I couldn't even get your group. You had it restricted. It wasn't even open. I was like, "Oh wow, that's tough. Tough crowd."
Yeah, that was just such a cool moment that we're just standing there like, wow, it's something that we all kind of got together and did that she was nice enough to just, some goofballs like us that she would mention it. And then all these people started coming up. What is this thing? What is this Alabama Triple Crown? Who's doing it? When is it? And I was like, I don't know what it is.
And shout out to Senior Hiker 77 because he actually went down to Dixie's booth and was just like, hey, talking about, who he is and what's going on in the hiking world. Next thing you know, he's doing introductions and here comes Dixie. And all of a sudden she wants to know more about the Alabama Triple Crown and then gives that highlight. That was huge. So yeah, big shout out to Senior Hiker 77 for doing the introduction. And big shout out to Dixie for obviously doing that shout out as well to really get that hype going. And again, from my perspective, what it's all about is just getting out there on trail and being able to experience these moments out on the Pinhoti, but also throughout Alabama. But it could be anywhere. So, I'm really happy that it's inspiring people to get out and do what they can do, even if they can't do huge section hikes, even if they can't do through hikes. This is something that if you plan right, you can do. Even though it looks like a huge challenge, you can do this. And that was a big highlight that she had called out as well, saying there's, even if you can't get away for all that time, make the effort, get out, go hiking, and find challenges that are local so you don't, have to quit your job and save up, $10,000 or whatever it is to go on a through hike. You can do these challenges. And I really felt that message was really compelling. So a big hats off to you though, Crow, for, being part of that pack that got the group together. Again, the Pinhoti Mafia, I would say that Crow is definitely the glue of all of that from a number of different ways. And then also the Alabama Triple Crown. So big shout out to Crow for making it happen, you having the dream, the vision, and then sharing it with everyone, and then making it open and inclusive to everyone to be a part of it. So big shout out to you, Crow, for that.
Thanks.
Definitely.
All right. So is there any other questions? It looks like we've had quite a party in the chat room. Thank you to everyone that has joined us. We definitely appreciate it. If you enjoyed today's live stream, obviously hit that like button and share it. If with anyone that might be doing the Alabama Triple Crown or thinking about wanting to do a local challenge. Anything from the team before we get off?
No, just shout out to, I think, some of our other team members from the original OG group, Jason Outdoors, my fellow hiker from Wisconsin. Hi, Jason, out there. And for me, a big shout out to J-Ben. Thank you for opening up your home and your family for putting me up and taking me back to the airport. So thanks to you guys.
Yeah, shout out to Side Trail. Thanks, Side Trail, for coming on the chat. He was one of the original ones. Anybody else we're missing in the group? Who else was here that I'm missing in the group? I think that was about it.
Mark from Marco's Hiking. I don't know if he's in there.
Mark was here. Yeah, I didn't see him here, but yeah.
Yeah, we were part of the Walking Wounded on day one.
But you were there, Squidly. You were there, my friend, and you will be there again.
I just needed a red badge of courage. That's
all right. Well, again, thank you to everyone that's been on today's episode. For everyone in this room right now, stay on. We're going to jump into the green room. But thank you to everyone. We definitely appreciate you joining us on today's episode, and we look forward to seeing you on future ones. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, Eddie.